The morning sun filtered through the sheer curtains, casting a soft, warm light across the modest bedroom. The air was still, heavy with an unspoken tension that clung to the walls of the small Nigerian household. Akimbo lay on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet the storm of thoughts racing through her mind. She could hear the bustling noises from the kitchen, the clanging of pots, the sharp click of heels on the tile floor. She knew who it was, as she knew every morning. Mama Nkechi. The older woman's presence filled the house like a suffocating fog, thick with judgment and disdain. Akimbo winced as she heard Mama Nkechi muttering under her breath about lazy wives and useless girls who couldn't give their husbands a child. The words sliced through her heart, leaving invisible scars on her already fragile soul. She pressed a hand to her chest, hoping to stop the ache that bloomed there every time she thought about her empty womb. It wasn't her fault. She had prayed, tried everything, but her body refused to give life. The creak of the door brought her out of her thoughts. Obinna, her husband, walked in, his expression as unreadable as ever. He glanced at her for a brief second before quickly looking away. He said nothing, his silence cutting deeper than any words could. "Good morning," Akimbo whispered, barely audible. Obinna nodded, but didn't respond, instead heading straight for the wardrobe to dress for work. Akimbo bit her lip, swallowing the hurt. She remembered when they used to talk, when Obinna's smile could light up her world. But now, that warmth had faded, replaced by an unspoken distance that grew wider with each passing day. After Obinna left for work, Akimbo forced herself out of bed, her feet dragging across the floor as if weighed down by the constant burden she carried. The living room was small, cluttered with memories of a life that felt more like a dream now. Wedding photos, small trinkets, gifts that once symbolized love and hope. But today, the room felt colder, darker. Mama Nkechi stood by the kitchen door, her hands on her hips, her eyes sharp and unforgiving. Akimbo flinched when their gazes met. The older woman's lips curled into a sneer. "All you know how to do is sleep and paint your face," Mama Nkechi spat, her voice filled with venom. "Is this what you call being a wife? You lie in bed all day while my son works hard. And what do you give him in return? Nothing. No child, no grandchild, just shame." Akimbo's breath hitched, but she remained silent. There was nothing she could say that would make Mama Nkechi understand. "I prayed for a good wife for my son," the older woman continued, stepping closer. "But what did I get? Useless, absolutely useless. You can't even make breakfast for your husband." Tears pricked at the corners of Akimbo's eyes, but she blinked them back. She had cried too many times and it never changed anything. Silence had become her only defense. Mama Nkechi's eyes narrowed, and then, without warning, she grabbed a nearby bucket and stormed to the kitchen sink. Akimbo watched, frozen in place, as the older woman filled the bucket with water, her movements quick and angry. "You want to sit there like a queen doing nothing?" Mama Nkechi shouted. "Let me show you what happens to lazy women." Akimbo didn't move. She couldn't. Her body locked in place as Mama Nkechi marched toward her, the bucket sloshing water over the sides. The older woman's face twisted in fury, and with a cruel smile, she lifted the bucket high above Akimbo's head. "You deserve this," Mama Nkechi hissed, and then the water came crashing down. It was cold, shockingly cold. The water soaked Akimbo's hair, her clothes, her skin, drenching her in humiliation. She gasped as it hit her, the sudden chill making her body tremble. Her makeup, the one thing that helped her feel somewhat presentable, now ran down her cheeks in dark streaks, mixing with her tears. As the water dripped from her chin, Akimbo slowly lifted her eyes to the doorway. Standing there motionless was Obinna. He had come home early. For a moment, their eyes met. Akimbo's heart leaped with a desperate hope that he would say something, that he would defend her, that he would stop his mother from further humiliating her. But Obinna said nothing. He just stood there watching, his face blank and distant, as though he were a stranger to the chaos unfolding before him. Akimbo's heart sank deeper than ever before. If Obinna wouldn't stand up for her, who would? The silence stretched painfully, the only sound the drip of water hitting the floor. Mama Nkechi, seeing her son in the doorway, straightened herself and set the bucket down with a clatter. "Your wife is a disgrace," she declared, pointing an accusing finger at Akimbo. "She gives you nothing but shame. It's time you find a real woman who can give you a child." Akimbo felt her chest tighten, the ache growing unbearable. She had heard this threat before, but with Obinna standing there, silent, it felt all too real this time. Would he leave her? Would he listen to his mother's poison and throw her away like she was nothing? She wanted to scream, to beg, to fall to her knees and plead with him. But instead, she sat there, drenched, broken, with no words left to fight with. Days passed, and the house was quieter than ever. Mama Nkechi's usual tirades were fewer, but there was something else now, a gleam of satisfaction in her eyes whenever she looked at Akimbo. It was unsettling, like she was waiting for something to happen. Then one morning, Mama Nkechi announced that she had brought someone from the village. "This is Chika," Mama Nkechi said with a wide grin as she ushered a young woman into the living room. "She's from a good family, a real woman who knows how to take care of a husband and bear children." Akimbo felt like the floor had crumbled beneath her. She stared at the young woman. Chika couldn't have been more than 20, with wide eyes and a nervous smile, clearly aware of her role in the cruel drama Mama Nkechi had orchestrated. "You can stay in this house," Mama Nkechi continued, her voice filled with triumph. "And soon, we will have a grandchild." Obinna walked into the room then, his expression unreadable. He glanced at Akimbo, but his eyes didn't linger. He turned to Chika, nodded once, and then left the room without a word. Akimbo watched him go, the weight of the moment crashing down on her. He wasn't going to stop this. He wasn't going to stop her. Days turned into weeks, and Chika became a regular presence in the house. The tension was unbearable. Akimbo avoided her as much as possible, retreating to her bedroom, shutting the door on the world. But the whispers followed her. The whispers of Mama Nkechi planning for the future, of the baby she expected to come soon. One night, Akimbo couldn't bear it any longer. She collapsed onto the floor, her hands pressed to her chest as sobs racked her body. "God, why?" she whispered through her tears. "What have I done to deserve this? Why can't I be enough?" Her prayers hung in the air, unanswered. The next morning, as Akimbo sat at the kitchen table, staring blankly at her untouched breakfast, she heard raised voices from the other room. It was Chika's voice, trembling and panicked. "I'm sorry, I didn't mean to lie." Akimbo's head snapped up. She hurried toward the living room, her heart pounding in her chest. When she arrived, she found Chika in tears, kneeling in front of Mama Nkechi, who was standing frozen with shock. "I'm not pregnant," Chika sobbed. I lied. The baby isn't Obinna's. I was already pregnant when I came here. It's someone from the village. I'm so sorry." The room fell deathly silent. Mama Nkechi's face twisted in rage, her voice a harsh whisper. What did you say?" Chika flinched. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone. I needed help, and you brought me here. I'm sorry." Obinna entered the room, his eyes widening as he took in the scene. His gaze flickered between Chika and Mama Nkechi, his jaw tight. Finally, he spoke. "Get out," he said, his voice cold. "Both of you." Akimbo's heart raced. She had never heard him speak to his mother like that. Mama Nkechi's eyes widened in shock. "What?" she sputtered. "You can't." "Get out," Obinna repeated, his voice firmer this time. He turned to Chika. "You too." Without another word, Mama Nkechi grabbed her things, her face red with fury. She left without looking back, Chika following close behind, her head hanging low. For the first time in what felt like forever, the house was quiet. Akimbo stood in the living room staring at the door where they had both left. Obinna remained silent, his eyes cast down. Akimbo didn't know what to say. Her heart was still heavy with the pain of everything that had happened. She wasn't sure if she could forgive him for standing by while she suffered. But at that moment, something shifted between them. An unspoken understanding that maybe, just maybe, they could start again. Obinna turned to her, his expression softening for the first time in months. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Akimbo's throat tightened. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that this could be a new beginning. And then, as if by a miracle, she felt something, a flutter, a small, delicate movement in her belly. She froze, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her stomach. Could it be? Her heart raced, tears springing to her eyes. She looked at Obinna, her voice trembling. I think I'm pregnant." Obinna's eyes widened in shock, and for the first time in what felt like forever, a smile broke across his face. He rushed to her side, his hands joining hers on her stomach. It was true, after everything, after all the pain, they were finally going to have their child. And for the first time in a long time, Akimbo felt hope.